What up, everyone? My name is Nachum Russell, or Russ. This is my buddy Kevin. I forgot how to say it.
Kevin Kazlaukas, Kaz. People call me Kaz sometimes.
Kaz. We're going to say Kaz. Just like I'm Russ, you're going to be Kaz. That's a lot cooler. And it has a cooler ring to it anyways. And Kevin and I have known each other for, I think, 2 years now, right?
Yes, 2 years probably.
2 years. Pretty cool. So for those of you who are tuning in, if it's your first time tuning in or if it's your first time listening on any of the podcast platforms, this is not a Q&A show. So if you have dog training questions, you can send them all to Kevin after the show and ask him all of your dog training questions.
And I'll answer right away.
But it's not a time for really Q&A questions. Obviously, if you have comments that are apropos to what we're discussing, throw them up in the comments. I love when you guys engage with us. I love seeing who's here. Say hi. Let us know that you're watching. But let's jump right into it. Kevin, you want to introduce yourself a little bit to everyone? Let everyone know what you do, who you are before we get into this.
Yeah, my name's Kevin. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm just a basic obedience trainer. I have a small kennel at my home on an acre and a half with my wife. I train dogs, teach them to sit down, place, good, yes, no, loose leash walk, all the fundamentals. I do my best to help as many people as I can. I've been in it for 4 years now, going on my 4th year.
Cool. So I know you for, I guess, 2 of those 4 years. We connected through social media, through Instagram. But I never actually asked you how you got into it, why you started training dogs.
I used to do video and animation and photo work, and I got out of that. I had a couple of customers that did work with dogs and one of them needed help, and I helped them for a short period of time. And it gave me a glimpse into kind of the logistics and the culture of dog handling and dealing with customers and just seeing like, oh, this is how these conversations go. And then I went off on my own. I got on Rover and started just doing dog sitting at my house for people. And I made a profile that was specifically targeted people with difficult dogs that said, I've never been able to bring my dog someplace. Because through this last job, I had handled difficult dogs and I knew how to, get them on a leash. And so I built a small community of customers there that were very loyal. And then I got off the Rover platform and just went totally independent, word of mouth after that. And now I'm here, my home with my wife, and I do this 7 days a week.
That's awesome, man. It's been pretty cool to watch from when we first got to know each other a bit till now. It seems like you've expanded a lot. You've grown, your business has grown, your skills have grown, and it's been very cool to watch. Give me your journey a little bit. So you started off, I know, on Rover. Then you started off, I think, training in your house. Now you have what seems to me from your social media like a whole nice kennel with a nice space to train and all of that, right? Yeah,
and where I am right now is a sheer luck. I lived in the city before in a very dense, tight house. I had a spot for 8 dogs in the kennels that you see here. These kennels here were with me I was a 900 square foot house. Whatchamacallit, but it was dense and it was tight and everybody was quiet. Everything was good, but it just was like, it wasn't the same. One day, a friend of mine put this house on the market on Facebook. She was a realtor. And I looked at it, I said, this can't be real. This place is not really real. And who is now my wife, I sent it to her and immediately we said, we need to have this place for so many reasons. And so I'm really lucky to wake up and work in a place that is a slice of heaven. I'm very, very lucky. And it's allowed me to have this kennel and have the space outside to handle a few dogs.
Yeah,
so it's just really lucky is where my current location is.
I'm kind of jealous. I'm always jealous when I see you're like the dogs you're doing like agility on the tree stumps and like it's all on your property. You have this like what's my park in New York City is your property. Like I got to get in my car and drive to go find that. And that's like right in your backyard. It's really nice to see.
Well, what I got my start in the city, and that's where people are. And so there's hangups. You know, when I need to go proof behaviors, I have to drive away. You know, like it's not as easy for me to find traffic. If I want to find other dogs on leash near me, I can't find those dogs. You know,
Right.
and so being here is cool. It makes for a nice photo sometimes, but it does have its drawbacks in terms of I have customers that live and dwell in condos. I cannot recreate that or begin to recreate the elements to kind of train through some of their, you know, if I'm doing a board and train. But because it's quiet out here, the dogs can just come out here and just completely decompress. Even if we don't train, they just stay here. It's easier for them.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful side of it. I was by my friends, Julie and Josh from Julie's Canine Academy about a month and a half ago already. I don't know if you know them. They're really cool. And they're in West Virginia. And I saw a very cool, similar probably to the way you are with your dogs, because you have this space for them that's very natural environment for dogs to go to decompress. It's very healthy for nervous dogs, for anxious dogs, all of that stuff that like overstimulates dogs in the city. They can go decompress to it, but then you could also hop in the car and bring them back to the city once they've gotten through that stuff a little bit, and then bring them back to real life. I think it's a very cool, because I'm assuming you're not that far from actual city life. I'm assuming you can get in the car and drive somewhere if people are coming to you.
Yeah, it's about 15 minutes till I'm on a main, 10, 15 minutes till I'm on a main drag where it's like, you know, Mad Max traffic. And the closest Home Depot is about 15 minutes away. Nearest dog park's about 20 minutes away.
Right.
And so, yeah, I got my landmarks mapped out for sure. I'm not way out in the sticks by no means.
And what would you say has been like, I don't know, when we spoke, you were kind of, I think, unsure about some things when we first had our first phone call, right? It was a while ago, but you were kind of struggling, unsure, like trying to figure things out. What would you say has been your biggest struggle jumping into all of this, going full time, becoming a trainer, all of that?
It's, you know, it's dog training is a language, you know, so let's say we're trying to learn Chinese, you know, and it's like, all right, I'm just going to, when you decide to open up a business and charge people, you're in the country, you're speaking with the people, you know, you're not in the classroom, it's not just, so it's like, am I speaking this language properly? Questioning myself and whether or not I'm speaking the language in a way that I should be, that the dog, and so, it's changed for me over time, but I mean, I'm self-taught, so, and I'm always self-doubting myself.
Yeah.
I think it's gotten better with time, but yeah, self-doubting yourself at first when you're just like, is this working? To be quite honest.
Yeah, I think that's a normal thing. I think that if dog training is kind of like an art, if it's being done right, that's how I look at it. And I think if you're not think of any artist, right? You ask an artist like about their art, they're the first people to critique it, right? They're the ones who are like going to tell you all the things that they messed up about it, all the things that they don't like the way it came out, or they don't like the way the music sounds, or whatever type of art it is. And I think it's very similar with dog training. It's like, of course you're going to be the most critical on it. It's your art, it's your work. And if you're not, you're probably not the best one to be doing it, because you're at that point where you think you know it all. And those are the ones who kind of screw it up the most.
Yeah, not being complacent, not always trying to be as humble as possible. There's a lot of, you know, as we know, there's a lot of misogyny. There's a lot of ego in this, and I catch myself. It's like, well, you know what, Kevin, just shut up, stop talking, right? You're gonna be. I should be more humble from time to time, but yeah, it's a constant learning journey. And the two trainers that I follow, I've always followed you as long as I've known you. Other trainers have come in and out of my vocabulary where it's like, I don't want to follow this person anymore for X, Y, and Z reason. I like this person more. And now what I have now is this portfolio of trainers who have amazing Instagram accounts. Men, women, all types of trainers of all shapes and sizes, where I meet a customer and, you know, I'm talking the language that I've developed over time with them. I'm trying to translate, and it's like, you know what? I think you'd like Russ. I think you'd like Larry. I think you'd like walking dog. And I'm able to say, I'm going to say it in one way, and I want you to hear somebody else say it over here. And so that's given me a lot of confidence in trying to speak this language, I guess, relying on others and how they articulate themselves.
Yeah, that's cool. I think there's a lot of pros and cons to the whole social media dog training world. But I think one of the cool things is getting like what you're saying, getting to find the different ways that different people articulate the same ideas, right? Because there's nothing new in dog training, right? It's all been done and tried, and like, okay, you'll come up with your own style of doing what's already been done. That's as new as it's going to get, right? But what there is there's everyone's way of delivering it that makes it different. Everyone's way of whether it's delivering that information to the dog or to the client, to the person that you're trying to teach, that really makes it different. And to me, that's one of the really nice things about the dog training world on social media, is that we get to have access, like what you're saying, to so many different people's ways of doing it. And more than for, at least in the way I look at it, more than for me as a trainer, but also for like dog owners can find the person that they connect with, whether it's someone who's 10 minutes away or someone who's on the other side of the world, and find someone that makes sense to them to learn from.
Yep. Let me show you something there. What I'm pulling up, this is something that I learned from a guy, Phantom Canine in Arizona. And he posted this thing on Instagram. And yes, social media certainly has its pros and cons. Certainly does. But every once in a while, you know, and with you, I saw these gems. You just had these gems. I'm like, that's a gem, and that's worth repeating. So this gentleman, Phantom Canine, said, this is how I show people what it feels like to hold it down, right? So if you're on a place right now, right, and this was a dog on place. He said, this is what it feels like when a dog holds a place. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So when I talk to my customers, it's just like, oh, I got to stay here. When I explain to customer how a dog feels, now I show them that. And the customer almost every time is like, wow, it's a lot of work. So through this medium, we're able to kind of express certain ideas. That's just one example that I really like.
Meaning like the dog is very stressed and anxious doing that, I'm assuming is what it's trying to show.
Yes, and it's different doing it through. It shows I'll be there with the customer. The dog will hold its place, and I'll do that with their dog. And I'll say, this is how your dog feels now. It's under stress. It's working hard to hold the place. It wants to get up because you're here. Think about how hard it's working right now. It's hard for people to understand that when you tell a dog to hold a place, that it's work. They don't see. So how do you make them see that? This is a visual way of helping them understand that one little concept in the sea of information we have to share.
Yeah, I love working with clients and part of why I love social media for myself, like the creation of content, is because it forces me to figure out different ways of saying the same thing, essentially, right? Like the way that I look at it, there's really not that many things to dog training. There's like, give your dog some structure, teach yes and no, teach some basic rules, boundaries. You know, I mean, obviously you can build, and it gets very complex with some dogs and some behaviors, but the basic stuff that it boils down to is pretty much the same over and over and over again, right? Yeah. But like I was having this discussion with another trainer recently. She was saying like, well, there's only so much that I can put out on social media. Like I've already said it all. And I was like, yeah, but Marley, what's wrong with you? You've already said it all, but you haven't said it all like in ways that everyone's going to understand necessarily. So for me, creating content, because it's something that I try to be pretty disciplined about doing daily, creating the content forces me to figure out new ways of delivering it, so that now when I'm like by a go home session, I'm with a client and we're just not getting it, I can be like, oh, maybe this way will work, because now I've already thought through 1,000 different ways of saying the same thing that I'll be able to pick out of and be like, maybe this one's going to work for you. I think that's the real like struggle of dog training when it comes to doing it professionally, is finding a way to deliver the information to the human, right?
You have evolved. Well, I remember when we first met, you were doing daily training tip number X, Y, and Z, and you were on camera. and you've since stopped doing that, right?
Yeah.
But now you're posting text with a faded backgrounds. You're doing that every day, and so the way that you're communicating is changing as well. I've always admired that. I think that's really because you're adapting and you're changing. That's what people want. I'm saying the same thing. I think people will find my Instagram account, or like they'll meet me and they'll hear me say the same thing for about a month or 2 months before they start hearing repetition. And so I'm always trying to just do videos or whatever in a way that will keep, like you said, saying the same concept in a different way or an entertaining way. Sometimes trying to add a little bit of humor, sometimes trying to add a little bit of edge. Hold on a second here. Hey, buddy. You're good.
Kevin's got for anyone who's just listening on the replay, Kevin's got a nice full-size kennel behind him with a whole lot of dogs. So he's just moving one of them around, I guess. And I got all my crew in place. The reason why I did why I switched from doing the video to the, I guess you can call it like those little tiles, those daily posts, the picture posts. Mm-hmm. So I made a commitment when I started putting up content that I was going to do a 60-second video every single day for a full year, 365.
I remember you told me that. You told me that. Yep.
Once that year was up, I was like, fuck this. I'm done going on video every day. Like, I'll go on video on my stories, but I got to find a different way to do this and to still post daily. Mama Bear, come here. And to still post daily, but not to have to, a lot of excitement here, but not to have to put myself on video every time. So for me, that was really why I switched. It wasn't really about adapting necessarily.
Okay.
It was more like I was done doing that. I did my time, and now I'm like, all right, let me move on to something else. And that's why I started doing those dog training thoughts.
Well, I'm inspired now. I'm trying to figure out, I want a way to be able to create the text on my phone without using Photoshop, because I don't want to have to do it on my laptop.
Oh, use Canva. Anyone who's trying to create content of any sort out there should be using Canva. Canva. It's the best app out there. You can get it for free. Like this is not even just for dog trainers. Anyone who's listening to this who wants to create content. I'm sorry, guys. I have to put a dog on a leash.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Anyone who's
Canva right now.
Anyone who wants to create content of any sort that has like pictures and nice graphics and all that stuff that everyone's into looking at, use Canva, and you can get it for free. And then obviously there's like a pro one as well, but the free one is good enough to really get very far with creating really nice, good content and just learning what your style is through it. And you can get all the different apps and all the different stuff like that. And it's the best. Yeah, a bunch of people in the comments are saying they love Canva. Canva is awesome. Like, it's my best friend. It's probably my number one app used on my phone besides Instagram, I guess.
Well, that might be awesome. I'm always looking for like the best app. Like, I'm still struggling with TikTok. I feel really good going around Instagram, but TikTok but creating the content, the camera, using the lenses and stuff, I'm really comfortable with. But like the graphic design, I'm completely foreign to. So I'm gonna check that out. Don't be surprised if I figure it out. You see some new stuff in my content soon.
I hope you do. I don't do TikTok anymore. I totally was like, it's not for me, and I just wasted too much time scrolling through it and not even creating content that I was like, all right, this is not for me. I'm not hanging out here anymore. So I took it off my phone. But some people are doing really awesome. Some dog trainers are blowing up on TikTok. I know a bunch of them that are huge there now.
I've seen it and I admire it. I don't want to be like an old curmudgeon and say like it's not for me. But right now, one of the creative outlets that I'm thinking about for I need to have a go home packet that I don't have right now. Hey, enough. And I was thinking about, once I have my, everything down, is creating some form of comic book and sending them home with a comic book where it's like rich, bold graphics with a storyline that you want to get to the next page and get to the end of it.
See, I love that.
That's kind of like it's so much work though. It's so hard.
But I love that idea. Nobody does it like that. Everybody has their style. My go home package is not fancy at all. Some people have really fancy ones. But I think what you're doing is what you want to do is extremely unique. You should go through with that because that's there. No one has a dog training comic book. That's like the most unique way of delivering the information that I've ever heard. And it's actually really cool because it will make it fun. It will make it different. It'll make it interesting. It'll be your thing that will stand out from the crowd. And it's hard to stand out from a crowd these days when everyone's doing the exact same thing.
Well, I live in Nashville. There's a lot of creative people here, and I'm fortunate to know a couple of artists that like do that type of thing, and they've done comic books before, and they're musicians full time, but they have this skill set where I can easily kind of like navigate the creation of it. I'm not going to like if I didn't know anything about this industry, creating a comic book would be very difficult. How do you do that?
Right.
But I know a couple people that are really talented. So anyways, that's my pie in the sky thing right now.
That's very cool. I think it's a very cool idea. What's your favorite part of what you do now? What do you enjoy most about it?
My favorite part about it is the quality of life. I get a really good night's sleep every night, which I didn't for a very, very long time in my life. I don't commute anywhere. I don't have to go to meetings. I don't have to dry clean my clothes. I don't have to do all these little tiny things that exist that I'm able to completely focus on the dogs and my home personal life. And I really like that about what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
It's a cool place to be.
Getting to create your own life rather than living it for someone else is definitely the shit. It's the way to go.
Yeah, but it's through servitude to the dogs. Like I breathe and I'm with these things all day long. I have to be with them and help them in order to get this for them to return the favor, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think of it as a deal. I was just telling this to a client yesterday. When you're working with dogs, whether you're a trainer, but really, I think even more so as an owner, because it's a lifelong deal, that you're making a deal with your dogs, right? It's like, I want this, this, and this from you, and then I'll give you everything else, an awesome life, right? But it's got to be both. It's got to be a give and take. Like every relationship, it's got to be a give and take. That the dog knows that there's certain things that are going to be demanded of it that it has to give to the relationship, and then you'll do your side of it, which is all the good stuff and all the advocating and all the fun and all of that awesome life that dogs deserve. But in the dog's head, they should know that it's kind of contingent on that they're getting it because of their side of the deal.
If you work with a customer and it's a new customer and let's say they have a new rescue or a new dog, how long does it take for that concept to really translate? I think that you have to go through the reps and the place work and the hand feeding and the crate time and the failure and the success to really sit back and understand the give and take relationship with the dog. I try and explain that on the front end is really, really hard sometimes to a customer. Anyway,
it has to be lived, right? Like, but see, I do board and trains. I don't know if you do board and trains only or one-on-ones also, but I do board and trains. So by the time the dog is going home, there's a lot that they can see that's been accomplished between when they saw their dog last to when they're seeing it now, right? And then it's much easier for them to visualize what that means by cutting a deal with your dog, essentially, what that means, because they can see the outcome of when that's done, right? They can understand that I clearly was doing things very differently with their dog than they were, hence why there's very different results, right? And then I can clearly set up the pieces, like the puzzle pieces for them and say, this is why, because your dog and I had this deal from day one, right? And I kept to my side of the deal and I ensured that he kept to his side of the deal. And that's why we have these end results. If you want the same thing, here's the puzzle pieces. Here's how it all works. Put it together yourself and follow it, and you're going to get the same thing out of it.
Just that accountability on all ends. Everybody's accountable. You can hold up your deal.
Yeah, man.
I can hear you 100%. Every once in a while, you digitize. Do I break up at all?
It's your side.
It's on my end.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's
What should I do here? Let me see here.
it's your internet, but it's not the biggest deal.
I'm out
So,
of my. Oh,
sorry.
never mind. I'm trying to
Oh,
get a
you're
better.
outside. Cool. You still getting those antlers that you cut up yourself and sell them?
Yeah, that's been a fun journey. I've figured out that what I want to do is buy a certain type of deer antler, and they come from Poland and Lithuania, and that's what you see above my head right here. What I really like about them is that you can give an entire antler to the dog, and it has all the parts of it. It's not like it. Anyways, I found a source for them that makes sense, and I was gonna sell them retail on like an Instagram store or something like that, but I don't want to get into retail just yet and stuff. I'll just give them to dogs to just have fun with them. They make fun on. They're fun to have on social media. They're great for the dogs. You can hear them in the background. All the dogs are just chewing on them constantly. So yeah, that's been a journey. I've gone through different animals and different densities and different things, and finding funny people on eBay selling funny things and getting funny qualities and stuff, and realizing what antlers just like this little black market thing. It's just they're funny. Anyway,
it's funny. It's funny that there's a black market for antlers. Yeah, I thought it was really cool when I saw like your post about them. You had like 50 or 100 antlers on the floor, they're all cut up, and like I thought that was really cool that you were getting all those fresh for them.
Well, what I like about them and what they become is a cool way. I found they can get expensive when you buy them at the store. I found a inexpensive way and a way to like process them, and then I give them away as gifts to people. It's like, here, take this dog, and it's just, it's a fun little token to send off with people.
Yeah, that's cool. And it's cool that you're getting them. I think what's cool about it is like you can give a treat, but what you're doing is much different. It's like here's an antler for your dog. It's something special. It's something unique. It's something very different than just here's a bag of treats. I mean, my owners get a dog back after training. That's all they get. They don't get treats or anything. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I mean, my owners, sometimes I send them home with collars. Something I recently looked into is I bought a spool of biothane. And my wife and I, we have a couple of rivet presses. I'm going to start trying to press out leashes because these things get chewed up, whatever, And so I'm just like going through leashes. And some of the leashes that come through here I hate. And I just want to like throw them away. And I'll give you a free leash if you just let me take that one off your hands. So I want to start trying to press out leashes. We try to stitching them with like nylon webbing, and the stitch is just a little bit of a pain in the butt. But having like rivets to put the biothane, I don't know if you've ever handled that. It seems like a cool product and a cool material that is. I don't know if it's just trendy, but I also like it in the feel of it in my hands.
Yeah, I recently got into using biothane mostly for long lines because I used to use like a regular like nylon long line, and I hated that it would get disgusting after going out into the field one time, and the biothane just washed it off. And I recently got into and love them. A lot of people are using them now. A lot of trainers are using them. A lot of owners are into it.
I was using a cotton long line, and I never will again because it broke. One broke the other day during an appointment.
Like a rip in the middle?
Yes, somewhere. I was using these cotton leashes, and they were throwing them away every like 2 or 3 weeks just because something would happen to them. No big deal. And I just would buy a bunch of them. But one just snapped in the middle of an appointment. I was like, never again. So anyway, I'm going to go.
Are we going to see full circle canine leashes on the market in the future?
I don't know. I don't think so. Leash is a leash, man. You know that.
Yeah, everybody's making their like my gimmick leash that has 5 extra buckles on it and like safety links and all of that stuff.
I had a customer drop off today, and they had this just 4 foot long, 5/8 inch thick leash. It had a poop bag on the end. I said, you know what? You're headed in the right direction. Take that poop bag off the end, and that's a perfect leash.
Yeah, it's like the only thing that's ruined is the poop bag. I can't stand the poop bags on the leash. I hate it.
It's the noise. Oh, it's so noisy. Get it away.
And you can't use the leash. You can't use the leash to communicate with the dog like that. It's just there. It's just you're holding on to it, but it's like you can't actually use the leash like a proper leash.
Russ, I have a question. What is the last show that you went to?
Like music?
Yeah.
Dude, I live in New York City. I don't know what's going on in Tennessee, but in New York City, the world has been shut down. Maybe you don't know because you don't live like in the world anymore. You live in a nice big acre property or whatever. But the world's been shut down for about 8 months, in case no one told you. And there is no live music to be seen. So what's the last thing I actually did see before that? God damn, it's been so long.
I don't know if I've asked anybody that question recently.
Yeah, I haven't.
It's going on a year since,
Damn, that saddens me that I don't even remember what the last thing was. I don't know. It's been a long time. I don't know. I legit don't even remember because it's been so long. That's crazy. And I used to see so much live music. I had tickets for a comedy event. Even Joe Rogan was supposed to do a comedy event in New York City. And I had tickets for it that got canceled. It got postponed like 3 times till he officially just canceled it. So
I had tickets to see Trevor Noah live, and that got canceled because of that. Would have been my last live performance type thing.
Are things open in Nashville, or it's all still shut down?
If you look at the news, kind of Nashville, Tennessee is just kind of like it's a hot spot right now. And the culture down here, our culture down here, downtown Nashville is a party zone where people come to party. And so the business, some of the businesses owners down there were advocating for keeping things open. It's like the worst place to have people congregate, where people are drinking and they're touching each other. And now, the Tennessee's just like this red bubble in the middle of the country.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't watch news, so I never know what's going on where.
I can tell you that, I'm not sure how it's affected your business. Things are okay, but I definitely, on a regular basis, I'm having customers either cancel or move things around because of this constantly. It's like an ongoing thing.
Yeah. I don't know. It's been interesting. To be honest, it hasn't affected me in a business sense, I should say. Obviously, everything affects everyone in some way or another, but it hasn't affected me in any negative way business-wise. I think I've actually been busier since this whole COVID thing started than I was for a long time beforehand. Everybody got dogs, and then the people who had dogs before that finally realized that their dogs are actually assholes because they were stuck with them all day, and they're like, this dog is not fun. And they realized it because it wasn't just like the 2 hours in the morning and the hour at night. It was like all day 24/7. So they realized their dogs are assholes. So for me, it's been great. It's been a business blessing that this whole thing happened. Not to like diminish anyone's struggles or anything that other people are going through, or like all of the hard shit that this year has brought for people. I don't want it to sound like that, but just in my personal life and with business, it's been really great because of it. It's helped my business a lot.
Yeah. How lucky are we, man? When it first hit, I had a bunch of boardings cancel, and I was just at first I didn't do anything about it. But now when people cancel plans so they're not traveling to spread it, it's like, good, don't travel. Don't do it. It's okay. I'm okay with, anybody because things have been good, and we're super fortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man, it's been an interesting year. I think I guess it's coming up to the end of December. This might be the last podcast I do of 2020. So it's definitely been interesting. I think since we're talking about 2020, all politics out of it, because I don't talk about that shit. But I think that a lot of people, and again, this is going to sound really shitty for people who had shitty years, which a lot of people did, and I don't mean it to sound like that, but I think there's a lot of focus on the negative of the year when I think that everyone has positive to focus on too. And I'm not saying to be like, everything is good when it's not really good. If it's not good, it's not good. But at the same time, I think that there's a push towards the negativity in the world as opposed to the push towards the positivity, towards the fact that, like, you are alive. You are watching some sort of show on your phone or your computer, right? We are connecting from like one place to the next. We have it really, really fucking good. And as bad as the year is and has been for so many people, like if you are connecting with somebody through a device, if you are talking to people, if you have people in your life, if you have food, if you aren't living on the streets, if you have clothing on you, if you're alive, if you're awake, if you're healthy enough to not be like, if you're not the person who actually got sick from anything this year, like, you're fucking blessed. So to me, it's like, I think there's a push towards the negativity that everyone is drawn to because it's so easy to be drawn towards negativity. And I think it's kind of a natural thing, but which is why I don't watch news or listen to any of that stuff, because you're never going to turn on your TV and the news is going to say, hey, this morning in today's news, this amount of babies were born. And in today's news, like, you're alive. And in today's news, like, you have food in your fridge, and or anything like that. You're not going to hear anything of the positivity, which is great news, that happens all around the world, because it doesn't get good ratings and it's not attractive and it's not exciting, right? But the reality is that there's more of that news than there is of the negative news. It's just that the negative news is easy to make louder and to push in people's faces and get them to actually listen to it. So that's my take on 2020, since you brought it up, kind of.
Yeah, man. Well, we're closing it out, and what a wild year. I mean, my wife opened a business. She worked in an industry, and she was at the top of her game, and she decided to leave the industry, and she opened her business. And I just posted on my story today, she got interviewed in the Wall Street Journal about like shipping
yeah.
for a small business. It's like, heck yes. But at the same time, her father passed away, and at the beginning of the year, and it was such a difficult journey for her, our family, and anybody's family that goes through it. We were able to go through that journey before COVID hit, and she was able to be with her father. And so certainly 2020, what a shitstorm. Everybody look for the silver lining. It's a lot of fun with a lot of my customers that I've worked with. There are dramatic shifts in their own lives for whatever reason because of COVID. And they have their dog and the progress that they're making with dog that brings them a lot of happiness, a lot of joy. And that kind of transcends a lot of things. And it's fun to be part of that journey with not just one or two people, but a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. The dogs create a sense of, see, for the dogs, nothing changed this year, except that a bunch of people all of a sudden stayed home with them, you know? But
nothing changed for them. Like, nope.
Dogs aren't watching the TV and giving a shit about like who's president, who's not president, and what war's going on, and what, like, how many people died. Like, your dogs don't care. And to me, that's one of the most beautiful, the things I love about dogs so much. Like, they are the epitome of living in the moment and appreciating what they have, right? You can take a dog and it could literally live in like a cement plate house with no paint and no art and nothing fancy and no music playing. Throw it a piece of meat and take it for a walk and pet it a little bit and give it some basic structure, and that dog's going to be happy as fuck, right? Like, that's what it takes. It doesn't take much. And like, to me, that's something that's important to learn from these animals. I think it's important to learn from them. And I mean, today's the day that I got my mama bear, my pit bull, right? And she's like a perfect example of that. She had a shitty life. I don't know what it was, because I don't make up stories of like what the rescue dogs went through, but she had a shitty life. I know that much. When I found her, she had just given birth and she didn't have her puppies with her, and she wasn't in a rescue organization. She was in a construction site where she was dumped to die, and she was like shut down, like literally shut down, not like what people like to say dogs look like on place, but actually shut down, right? And now she's like the most happy-go-lucky thing. And it's not like she sits and thinks and dwells on her past. As long as the humans live in the moment with them, the dogs will live in the moment, and the past doesn't matter. And to me, that's like learn something from a dog every so often.
Yeah, so that's an analogy that I make to my customers. Sometimes customers will come to me and they just front load me with like dog history, found it under a truck, abused, do it, and it's just like, okay, that information is important. But I make the analogy of the watering hole. If you go to the watering hole in the Serengeti, you have crocodiles, gazelles, all these animals there, right? And all the gazelles will be at the edge of the watering hole. The one croc will come out, pow, grab a gazelle. Everybody scatters. Minutes later, everybody's right back. Why? The past doesn't matter. What matters is, the water. What matters is the whatever balance is happening around that water hole. And the past just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to the dog either. Moving forward.
Yeah, we as in like humans in general end up holding dogs back a lot because you see there's a beautiful thing to remembering your past, but there's also like a shitty side of it, right? Like we can remember great memories, right? You can remember getting married, you can remember building a business, you can remember like all the awesome memories, but at the same time that comes along with remembering the bad memories, right? And for I think with like the whole rescue thing, because that's where it plays out a lot, it's the people who tend to either think about what might have been or remember those things and keep their dog in that space when the dog is like, I'd rather just be living now. Like, I no longer live under that truck or wherever I was found, or I never actually did and someone made that story up. And like, I'd rather just live in the now. And then the humans are the ones who tend to, because we feel bad and because we have empathy and it's all comes from a good place, end up keeping the dog stuck in that past story or whatever it is and not letting them actually move forward. To me, that's like why I hate the word rescue. I don't use it. I will never call my dogs a rescue, even though all three of them are secondhand dogs. Like they're dogs. Like they're not rescues. They're dogs. They're golden retrievers. They're pit bulls. They're Rottie mixes. That's as labeling as I'm gonna get with it, because like the whole rescue thing comes with this whole story that you have to give the dog in order to make it a rescue.
Right. I mean, no, they unfortunately the altruism lacks in rescuing dogs. It's not necessarily there. So yeah, it's a tough one to translate to your customers. It's a tough one to because again, the emotion that's loaded into all this stuff. I let people call their dog whatever they want. You call it what they want, as long as you're doing what you're supposed to. You're doing right by it, and keeping them out of trouble, giving a good communication. But yeah, I'm not. My dog Chipper, he's bananas, man. He's so crazy. I don't refer to him as a rescue. He's just a freaking dog, and he's crazy, and he's got to get out there. He does an hour on the treadmill almost every single day. He does. He's off leash multiple times a day. Today I have Winnie helping me out. We were just doing sprints back and forth, and that's what's important to him. He doesn't care if it's Christmas.
Yes, exactly. He doesn't care if it's Christmas. Like, they don't care about this shit. I love that about them. Like, I love it. It's such a beautiful thing. Like, they don't care. They're not buying anyone presents. They're not worried about what's going to happen in 2021. Like, they don't know that it's 2020. They don't know that it's Wednesday or whatever it is. Like, they're just alive. They're just enjoying being alive. That's a beautiful thing why I'm a big part of why I'm drawn to them.
Yeah, man, it's a hell of a lot of fun when you get to sit back and reflect. It's a lot of fun. We're very fortunate to make a living in this, and yeah, man, it's a lot. This is my third business. I've started and failed a couple of businesses, and I don't have any regrets. I love what I did, but this one is fulfilling me in ways that others didn't. I can't imagine any other type of occupation will. And kind of the insight that you learn from the dogs, like you're talking about, not caring about the past or whatever it is, it's helped me learn more about myself. As I get older, I'm 41 now. I always want to be on a journey to like constantly change myself, and how can I keep improving? I don't want to get stale. I'm terrified of staying in one place and not changing as a person. And the dogs have certainly helped me do that now. Now that I'm in almost 4 years of training too. And I'm just looking at them right now. They're all just doing their own thing. They all had everything they need today. And it's just fun just sitting back sometime in the kennel at the end of the day and just watching them chew on antlers, kind of like play with each other through the fence, groom themselves. Who knows? It's very zen anyway.
So before we went live, you mentioned kind of like along the same notes that you're saying now that this has been a spiritual journey of some sort for you, right? This whole training thing. In what sense has this been a spiritual journey for you? And how does this fulfill you differently? What does it do for you?
Spiritually, I've lacked spiritually my whole life. I was raised in a very strict religious household, and I kind of squelched my appetite for religion and maybe spirituality. And then through my last two businesses and jobs, I was so worried about the product and the sale and the customer support, finding spiritual. And I was younger, you know, in my 20s and 30s, and firing on all cylinders all the time was more realistic. And now the age that I'm at, I can't work like that. I mean, I can work long days, but it can't be in the way that I was. It's I feel like, maybe it's a bad analogy, but I feel like a farmer, you know, whether maybe cattle is a bad comparison, but you're like with the animals, you're just moving with them. You're just moving with them. You know, you certainly have bad days training, you know, some dogs want to, but overall, every day is really kind of similar. You're just moving the dogs in and out. You keep them active. And there's a certain kind of flow about it. And when I'm training and one of the dogs is like acting up and addressing that while training, and two dogs are on the treadmill, and then I'm trying to be consciously aware of 8 animals at any one given time in the same room. I don't drink anymore for a reason. You can't drink and do that.
Yeah.
And that was another thing that got in the way of my spirituality. I'm glad that I don't have that in my life anymore. And I'm able to, it's allowed me to tap into a more spirituality, fulfillment, and help try to communicate with the dogs better. I can't imagine me personally, you know, having alcohol in my life and doing this. It just wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't be smart.
So are you like completely sober now, or you just don't drink whatever?
I just don't even touch it. Didn't mix well with me.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And
didn't
did
make
you
the
stop
decision.
drinking when you started working with dogs?
Yes.
That's very cool. And what triggered that? I'm curious. Like, unless was it a personal thing that you just stopped drinking, or was it actually the dogs that was like, I don't want to drink anymore?
There was a period of time where like dogs in my life and alcohol there was a little period of time and there was overlap. And I had to make a decision. It's like, for a lot of reasons, right? Like my consumption of alcohol was not healthy and hadn't been for a long time, but I was able to have these other jobs. I could do these other occupations. Drinking more than you should was part of the culture of these businesses, right? And it's part of the culture everywhere. You know, that's just part of our culture. I didn't find that here. This was happening in my personal life with my wife and person I love so much. I find so much more fulfillment and happiness from that. And I find so much more fulfillment and happiness from this. And with my customers, when I tell them, this is the analogy that I make to my customers. When we start training and I'm like, don't touch the dog, hand feed the dog, make these changes, don't go to the dog park. Like, all right, this is the sobering up process. You can't go to the bar. You cannot hang out with those people. You can't be touching the dog all the time because that's the drink. It's causing your dog to become intoxicated. All right. You're not going to drink, or you're not going to touch the dog. You're going to hand feed. You're going to leave a leash on inside for the next 7 days. The first 2-3 days, your dog's going to go through withdrawals and you're going to hate it. You're going to go through withdrawals. You can make it further through the first 3 days, 4 days, make it to day 7. You call me back. And those customers call me back, because that analogy, they get it. They're like, man, this really sucks. Like, if I'm going to be your sobriety coach, nobody wants to talk to the sobriety coach at first. Nobody wants to talk to that person.
Yeah.
But if you have a dog with problems, just look at it that way. It sucks at first, but then it gets a heck of a lot better. So I use that personal experience in my own life as as a training tool, and people get it.
I love that. I love that. I relate to it so much because I think of dog training literally as rehab, even if it's not necessarily the crazy cases like aggression and that stuff. But what we're doing is we're asking dogs to live a completely different way than they're used to living, to figure out new ways of coping with the world, to figure out new ways of relating to the world, where they sit, where they fit into the world, right? We're also telling their family to do things differently. And I've always thought of it like that, in that same sense as how you think about it. And it literally is the same thing if you think about it, right? Let's use the addict example, or alcohol, or whatever you want it to be. And someone who goes away to a program, and in that program, the first thing that they learn how to do is stop using, right? Stop drinking, or stop gambling, or whatever your vice is, stop doing it, right? That's the number one rule in any rehab program, is don't do the thing that you really always want to do and you're addicted to. Once you've stopped doing it, then we could be like, good. Now that you stop doing that, there's a gap in your life, right? Because you don't know how to deal with life without that shit. Now let's fill that with, here's a new system. Here's a better way to cope with your emotions. Here's a better way to cope with the world, to handle your triggers, to deal with all of that stuff. But then that's all not a real world, right? When you're in this program, that's not the real world. Then they send you back home, right? And that's where shit gets real. Just like when the dog goes back home, that's when shit gets real. And what makes somebody who stays sober after that program versus somebody who relapses is the same thing as with the dog. It's your support system, right? It's the consistency. It's the structure in your life. It's the accountability, either to somebody or to yourself. It's literally living a whole new way of life. And if we think about with our dogs, what do we all preach? Every successful dog trainer says the same shit in different ways. You got to be consistent with your dog. You got to have structure in the dog's life. You become your dog's support team, you, the family. You become their coach. You become that person that has to hold them accountable, because otherwise they slip right back into, they relapse. That's essentially what it is. They relapse. And I love that you use that example. I really do. I relate to it a lot personally. I've been sober for about 4 years. So it's my go-to. It's the way that I look at the whole world, really, is through that lens. So it's very cool that you brought that up.
Blake at Dream Come True, I heard him made an analogy to, substance abuse one time, and I was just like, oh my gosh, that makes a lot of sense, man. And that's always, I've refined the way that I talk about it with people. I'm always kind of tweaking the analogies, but people tend to get it. And it's been a powerful tool for me. And it's something that makes me unique. If I do a personal session, that's something that's going to make me very. And when people come to me, they come back to me, and we're having this problem. I'm like, look, are you serving up that first and second drink or not? Oh, you are? Yeah. Right. And that, referring to that is always a good benchmark.
Yeah. It just makes so much sense in every aspect of what training is, really. Right. Like a newly sober person and whose friends bring them to a bar. It's like, those are not good friends, right? And if you go to that bar and you're newly sober and you don't have the tools to deal with being in that heavy drinking environment, you're going to have the drink, right? A newly sober dog, like a dog that's just finished the training, that now you want to take it to like the most high triggering environment, that's probably not the best idea, because the dog might not have all of this coping skills. You as the sobriety coach, as you called it, doesn't have all of those tools of how to deal with it. So it's like, take it slow, take those steps. You'll start with small triggers, right? Just like you'll start with like going out with friends to a restaurant that happens to have alcohol versus going to a bar, right? So you'll start by walking down a street that has dogs on it, but it's not Manhattan, right? And then you slowly, once you get through one trigger and you work through it and you learn what's right and what's wrong reaction to each trigger, then you can take it to the next one, until eventually you might be able to go to the bar to hear live music and not have a drink, right? Just like the dog might be able to walk past a dog park or play with other dogs or whatever. It's like the big trigger for it is, it might actually be able to do it one day but only if it learns to work through all the small ones first and then graduate to the big ones. Because what so many people want to do is like, well, I want to bring my dog to the dog park. Well, it's like, obviously don't go there anyways, but that's the most triggering thing in the world that you want to do as your goal versus saying like, I want to be able to walk my dog down the block and then slowly build to the big one so that you've worked through each small trigger along the way and your dog can actually cope with the big stuff. It all aligns so well in every single aspect of this stuff.
Totally, man. Totally. I mean, training dogs helps people in so many, and there's so many ways to make things analogous. You can make sobering up. You can make it analogous to losing weight. Nobody wants to lose freaking weight. Nobody wants to get healthy. It is a pain in the butt, and it takes a coach, somebody on your side. That's why I'm a big believer in the phone. If customers text me or call me, I'm like, I love being able to pick up the phone and be like, man, come on, you got this. Because that's a lot of training for me, is just getting people pumped up to just do it. Like, just put your dog on a 30-minute place every night for the next seven days. You can do it. Count it down. And that's a lot of fun. Being that coach, getting people pumped up to do the work.
Yeah, absolutely. There's not, if you think about anything that you want to be successful in at life, because like you brought up a couple different examples, the core things behind it all, like obviously learn the skills to do it, right? So if you want to build muscle mass, learn the skills to do that, because that's going to be different than learning how to paint. But the things mentally that you need to have in order to become good at anything and become successful, it's all going to be the same. It's going to be having consistency in your life, some sort of routine, some structure, some discipline, some accountability, right? It's all really the same shit. None of this stuff is novel. It's just that it's novel for a lot of people to apply it to dogs. But if you ask any of your customers, right, your clients, your dog owners, they all have these aspects of all the things that we talk about in their daily life. Otherwise, they wouldn't be a part of society and their life would be complete shit. And I'm assuming if they're coming to you that they have some of their life at least in order already, right? And it's just applying all of that to the dog that is very novel to them. And I think that's a big part of what I find my job is to teach them really that the things that you know to be true in life apply to your dog also.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. 100%. But then you're also walking the fine line when you're comparing people to dogs and then, well, anyway.
I don't have an issue with comparing dogs to people. I'm actually
I do it all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually pro it. I just think that it should be done properly. You see, if we're going to compare dogs to people, if I walk in your house and shit on your dining room table, I'm pretty sure you're going to throw me out of there really quickly, right? Like, you're there, Russ? Yeah.
Lost you for a second. Here's my ultimate, when people, dogs, people, dogs, comparing the two, when people say, my dog sleeps in the bed, or when can I let my dog sleep in the bed? I say, like, you know what? You can let your dog sleep in your bed all the time, as many nights as you sleep in your dog's bed. Just do it.
Just switch it up.
It's just switch it up. If you could switch it up, what's the difference?
Yeah, I'm not against the whole. See, I understand why, and I say it too. Don't humanize your dog, because we should respect the dog for being the dog. But if you want to play the humanizing card, I'll play it with you as well, right? Like if you want to say, oh well, I wouldn't do that to my child. Okay, but do you let your child like flip over the dining room table because he's pissed, right? Like, oh, you wouldn't do that to your family, really? Like, if I walk into your house and I take my shirt off and I let my hair down and I light a cigarette, like, and just sit on your dining room table smoking a cigarette with my hair down and my shirt off, like, am I gonna last there? And if the answer is yes, then you got to work on a lot more shit in your life, anyways. Like, so of course it's the same with your dog. The core behind it all, it makes so much sense. It's just people want to humanize their dogs. They don't want to humanize their dogs. They want to make them like infants. That's where the problem comes in.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of where does the problem come? I mean, we could just queue up another hour. I get all kinds of feelings about things that happened post World War II in dogs, and people are having less kids now. And, my wife and I, we're not having kids, but we have these mammals, these other mammals in our lives. And that's a lot that we're putting on our dogs. We put a lot on our dogs that we don't even know it. And trying to be aware of that and pointing that out to people. You know, people say, I want to be able to bring my dog to work. And, you know, I say, are you happy at your work? Are you happy? And if you're going to bring your dog to work, is it fair for you to put that burden on your dog as well? So I'll just things to consider with our dogs in our lives, and how think about what it was like, right after World War II in the 1950s compared to what it's like now. Our lives are so drastically different. And in like the 20,000 year relationship we've had with our dogs, to change it that fast in their, perspective in a blink of an eye, it's crazy how things have changed so fast for them, and help them learn how to navigate this stuff. Traffic, noise, 9 to 5s, all this stuff. It's a lot of work. It's a tall order. I mean, these are top of the apex predators that are living in condos and stuff. It's important to explain that to customers.
Yeah, what we demand from them is a whole lot more than what was ever asked of them ever in the history of canine-ship, whatever you want to call it. Like, we've never demanded this much from them as what we demand of them in city life. And then we wonder also why we have so many behavioral issues at the same time. It's like we're demanding a ton from them, but also not giving them some sort of like guidelines of how to do what we're demanding of them. It's such an unnatural life, everything about it. Even where you have the dogs, where you live in a much more nature, peaceful type setting than I do, there still is a lot that's so unnatural to them. Like, you have a TV on in your house, right? And you have all that stimulation going, and you have music playing, and you have life going on, and food cooking, and all the things going on all the time that are just a regular part of human life, that for dogs, it's so overstimulating, and we're asking them, hey, can you just chill? And it's like, no, I can't. You're driving me nuts.
Get along with it.
Right. It's a very interesting thing, and I've been thinking about it a lot. Like, we bring dogs into a very human-centric world. Usually it's an urban life, a city life, and it's as much as they've evolved with us, their intellect hasn't gotten to a point where all of a sudden they're like, oh, I understand technology. That makes sense that there's a screen over there with a million different colors and sounds coming out of it, and animals making noises and gunshots going off from that screen. Like, it doesn't make sense to them, and we're expecting them, hey, can you just go lay down? And we don't want to teach them how to do that. Like, come on, it's so unfair.
Yeah, it's wild. We put a lot on them, and it's what's really fun to be a part of that. When you see a customer, you work with somebody, it's like, yeah, you can teach sit down place, but when you're with a customer for weeks and then months, and you see their perspective shift, and then they're advocating for their dog, and you see it, whether it's out in public or when you get together or you see it on their social media, it's like, wow, their perspective has shifted through this process, and they're seeing how good it is for their dog. And I have a lot of cases that I'm proud of, people that were really struggling with their dogs. Why am I thinking about rehoming this dog? But being able to keep it in their home by helping see the perspective, like, look, this is hard for a reason. And, empathizing with the dogs a little bit more, trying to see it from their perspective, as hard as that is. They're freaking dogs, right? So anyway, my kennel is starting to stir a little bit. These guys are getting antsy here.
We could wrap it up. But I want to ask you one last question. My question that I like to ask all the trainers that I'm lucky enough to talk to, people who come on here, which is pretty cool. It's pretty cool how this has all happened, that I get to talk to so many cool people. But what's one thing that, if you can tell every dog owner, what would be one thing you'd want them to know? Like, every dog owner is tuned in right now listening to Kevin. What's the one message you'd want them to have?
Oh man, my thing for the past 6 months to a year is, you are touching your dog too much. Stop touching your dog so much. That's just the one thing if there's any one thing that we can very easily do that doesn't take time, that will help our dogs and their self-control by us controlling ourselves and our impulse control. If we want our dogs to control themselves, we have to control ourselves. So touch your dog less. Keep your hands off of it. Let it have its space.
Why?
Because it wants its space. You know, you when you're born, you're a child, you're nursed, you're groomed by your parents, and then all of a sudden you get your personal space, and we don't afford our dogs that. And that's something in our culture. We bake it into our culture with our shirts and the messages of, I want to pet all the dogs. I have 2 hands to pet 2 dogs. And this is not okay. Back to the substance abuse thing. What if it's okay? Our whole society, look at that guy sitting at the bar drinking. He looks so happy. Look at that person, you know, having a drink, talking at the microphone. If you didn't know better, you'd think that alcohol is great. Look at how happy it makes people. And so much of our dog culture just doesn't realize how destructive the physical touch is. I've had some of the most transformative relationships with people that I've never met. Tell me things like voodoo magic, sorcery, dark magic, to describe the 7-day no touch fast and what happens. The dog just starts minding its own business.
Yeah, I'm totally on with that. It's a much more natural way of connecting with dogs, just to be in their space rather than to be all over them. You know, it's not what they do with each other. If they're actually balanced and healthy with each other, they coexist. I've seen dogs in a more natural wild setting. I've traveled, I've seen it, and they're not all over each other. They're not petting each other. They're also not, they do touch each other, just to make that clear, but they're not like ruffle and tumbling all day, and they're not all over each other all day. They're just really a lot of coexisting with each other, and it creates this beautiful energy between them. Yeah, and if owners can connect to that as well, it would change everything. It would definitely change everything. And the cool thing is also, just I'm going to add on to your point, if you bring down your level of affection, right, that physical touch drastically, and then you touch your dog, that's when the physical affection really becomes meaningful to your dog, right? It's like if there's a 24-hour buffet that's always there, then it's like, all right, I don't give a shit anymore about the food. I'm just going to eat whatever. Like, it is what it is. But if the food is scarce, right, then it becomes meaningful. And we forget how important our physical touch could be to our dogs because we give it for free so much. And if you want it to be meaningful, like, it's one of the most valuable rewards that you could use with a lot of dogs, not all dogs, but a lot of dogs, but it becomes meaningless because we give it all for free.
And answer to the question when people are like, "Oh, my dog only listens to me when I have treats in my hand." You know, how do I start teaching my dog to listen to me without treats in my hand? Stop touching your dog so much. That's such a funny answer, right?
Yeah.
What a great step in the right direction. How do I not use treats so much? Stop touching the dog. Weird. Explain in 30 seconds and it'll all make sense.
You put up a cool post about that recently, I saw, with the 2 dogs on the treadmill, and you were talking about food and treats and training.
Yeah, I'm always doing treadmill and stuff, and the treadmill is like that's an important. I love the treadmill. The treadmill is fascinating to me, and I'm looking into a dog trotter right now, or there's another brand in Italy that makes them. I can't wait to get like a slat mill or a carpet mill or something.
Cool, those are fun.
Yeah, I think they look pretty intimidating.
I mean, yeah, I've never actually used one, but I think it's really cool to watch. I haven't had any of my dogs on it ever. I feel like Marley would probably lay down on it. He wouldn't even make it move, but it looks like a lot of fun for the dogs.
Check out Run Buddy Mobile.
Is he one of those guys with like the vans that has the exercise stuff in it?
Yeah, he's got two treadmills inside of it in Arizona. So it's like when it's 120 degrees out, you're not walking your dogs. He's showing up.
Oh, I think I follow this guy. I'm pretty sure it's the same guy.
It's a cool service. It's legit.
Yeah, it's a cool idea. All right, man, let's wrap this up. Sounds like you got some dogs to tend to, and I got some dinner to tend to. So let's wrap this up. But tell everyone how they can find you, follow you, get in touch with you, learn more about you and all of that.
Full Circle Canine on Instagram. Canine is spelled out with a C. That's the best place right there. You'll find my website. My phone number is right there. And that's it.
All right, man. This has been fun. Thank you very much for coming on. This is fun. It's cool. I like the way that we kind of came a little bit full circle. You get it? So that's cool, and I appreciate it. It's been fun chatting with you. Hopefully we'll talk more. And for everyone who tuned in, I appreciate you guys tuning in, or anyone who's re-listening to it on the replay. If you're listening to it on one of the podcast platforms, shoot me a message on Facebook, connect with me, let me know where you're listening to it, because I'm always curious where people are listening, and I'm not good at the analytics shit. So let's just do this. Let me know where you're listening to it. If you're listening to it on YouTube or Facebook, I don't need to hear from you. I know about you guys already. I see you all and I love you. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining, Kev. This was fun. Love you all. And happy holidays. Happy New Year's. I don't know if I'll be doing another podcast before New Year's, but either way, happy New Year's. Love you all. Stay kind.
Thanks, Russ.